Hey everybody, old school comic book reviews. What's going on here is this is well, this is kind of ironic. What's going on is I have you probably won't be able to hear it, but I have a hard rock CD playing in the background. It's by a rock band called The Cult. The song that just came on is a song called New York City, and one of the it's called New York City, and part of the refrain is Hell's Kitchen is a DMZ. What's ironic about that is the comic book I want to talk about is the New York Five, which is a comic book that was published by DC, DC's Vertical line last year. And the writer of the comic book also did another comic book that was set in New York called, DMZ. But anyway, getting to the point, New York 5 was a 4-issue miniseries that was published by DC last year. I was actually going to do this clip or whatever, several months ago, and basically, long story short, I got lazy, and then I put it off, and then I eventually forgot about it. But I'm going to try to do it again today, and I hope I'm able to do it justice. Basically, New York 5 is a sequel of sorts to a story that Brian Wood and artist Ryan Kelly did called The New York 4, which was originally printed for a line that DC was going to put out called the Minx line. The whole point of the Minx line was it was going to be aimed at like teenage girls and young adult women, and in an effort to kind of like put out different types of material and get more women and girls reading comics and bring in a new audience and all that sort of thing. And which actually I thought was a very good idea, but for whatever reason, DC Corp as a corporation decided to not continue doing the line. So that was that, but that's how like I said, the sequel, New York 5, ends up under the Vertical line. It's suggested for mature readers, but really there's not a whole lot of explicit things going on here, and I'm sure it's just more because of, subject matter and not because of any, there's no explicit sex in here at all, there's no violence in it at all. But, it does have to do with, love and loss and relationships and stuff like that, which we'll get into in a moment. Let's see here. Like I said, Brian Wood is a pretty well acclaimed writer in the comic books industry right now. He's gotten lots of accolades for another series he did with Brian Kelly called DMC, as well as another thing called Demo, which he did with another artist called Becky Klugen, which I have not read any of, but I do mean to go back and try to check out. This particular story pretty much picks up where the last story left off, but you really don't have to have read any of it. The first page basically introduces you to the characters and where they're at in their lives. The main characters are basically, I would say, there's Riley, there's Ren, there's Marissa, there's Lona, there's also Riley's sister, Angie, and then they also end up meeting another girl a little bit later on in the story. But Riley is kind of in a way, she's kind of like the reader identification character. She's young, she's naive a little bit. She's trying to figure out what's what's going on in the world and things like that. And she has family issues and whatnot. Part of that has to do with her older sister. Her older sister, plays in some sort of rock band, and she's, Riley just thinks the world of her. She's just like the cool big sister and all that sort of thing. She's so hip and everybody loves her and she's very popular and all that sort of thing. You've got Ren, who's kind of like the smart hipster chick, painted dreads and all that sort of thing, but, she kind of makes, bad mistakes, and, ends up with the wrong guy and that type of thing. There's Lona, who's kind of like the overachiever, but now she's away from home, she's in a big city, and now this college life is a lot more than she's used to, and she has to deal with failure for the first time of her life. And then you've got Marissa, who's kind of cool and outgoing and things like that, but then you find out, she's got her secrets and, she's got her family things as well. And that's it. Like I said, it's all about these characters, their first year in college, just trying to live their lives, making mistakes, trying to understand how what it's all about to be a young adult in a big city. One other thing I like about the story is, as much as it's about the lives of these young ladies, it's also pretty much a love letter to the city of New York itself. There's lots of information about, this is Soho, this is this is Soho, this is Brooklyn, this is the 5 boroughs, this is the Art Institute, this is that. And, you're given a lot of information. And, I gotta say, I've never lived in New York, so I can't really testify to how realistic or accurate anything that's going on here is. But, I liked all that information. It gave it another sort of layer to the story, you know what I mean? Let's see here. The format's pretty interesting. Basically, it was 4 individual issues, and each issue was like $2.99, but it was in black and white, so there's no color in it. On the other hand, you got 32 pages of story and art content. There's no ads or anything like that. And I thought that was pretty cool. Well, it's pretty cool for 2 reasons. One reason, just on the kind of, just on an aesthetic level, it just kind of, for one reason, it kind of takes it out of that sort of fantasy superhero format, I guess you could say. It lets you know right away that this is something different. It's not one of those type of comics, so you have to apply, I guess, a sort of different sensibility when you're reading or whatever. Not that it's all, hip and esoteric, but, when you're reading it, it's not supposed to be Green Arrow or something like that. This is its own thing. It kind of put me in a frame of mind of, like, back in the 90s, where you had a lot of, like, alternative comics or indie comics, where a lot of people were doing stuff that was either satirical or semi-autobiographical or, exaggerated stories about, things that were going on in society or whatever. Back when you had guys like, I don't know, like Dan Clowes and Adrian Tomine and Joe Matt and, I don't know, even Pete Bagg to a small extent, just doing stories that were, rooted more in the so-called quote-unquote real world, you know what I mean? Even though some of them are like really kind of weird and crazy and out there, it was about people, going to the show, going to the bar, breaking up with somebody, trying to hook up with somebody, and blah, 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 Or it was about, just regular people living their lives of quiet desperation or what have you, The other thing is just on a comic book fan, comic book company type of level, I think it's real interesting. I think that's maybe an experiment that maybe Marvel and DC should try to use a little bit more. Maybe drop the color, but increase the pages, give it to people at a cheaper price. More creator-owned stuff, or maybe stuff with fringe characters, just to invite people to try out different things. Some people don't want to, part with $3.99 on something they're not familiar with, but give it to them for $2.99 and give it a good-looking package that, maybe not have color, but, makes up for it in some other way. Maybe they'll take a risk on it, I just think that's an interesting idea. Let's see here. Okay, now something I would nitpick about it is, well, on one hand, on the positive side, you've got, let's go back to that. You've got, these young women, living their lives. I think it's one really cool thing is they are all given their own, distinctive personalities and characteristics, and they've got their own agendas and goals and problems and failures and successes and things like that they have to deal with. And, they're all kind of, smart and cute and pretty and all that. But, they're not really, even though they're all cute and pretty and whatever, they're not overly sexualized like you see in some comics, they're not bent over provocatively every other page. There's not, boob shot and boob shot, ass shot, boob shot. They're all very attractive drawing, but they're all dressed like normal people and so on and so forth. But now getting to my nitpick point, the way some of the material is handled, it's a little bit too glossy, you know what I mean? And I don't mean the art, I mean like the way the material is handled. Getting back to the way the women are portrayed, you've got 5 distinct people, but everybody is just so pretty and so hip, and they all dress just right. Couldn't, somebody be cute but maybe be 10 or 15 pounds overweight? Or maybe somebody's very pretty but they have a big nose, or maybe somebody could be just a very plain Jane looking person, you know what I mean? Why not have that type of, variety as far as like, I guess body types or what have you, Another thing is, like I said, everybody's got, problems and issues, but at one point it gets almost kind of soap opera-y in a way. Not that I think the problems are unrealistic, they don't get outrageous or anything, but they're handled in not quite a shallow way, but certain things I think should have probably been given more weight or more gravity than certain other things. There's a big difference between, not to give too much away, but somebody ends up pregnant, you know what I mean? And there's a big difference between that, in my mind, and failing a class, you know what I mean? I think those are very different as far as life-changing events. And but the way it's portrayed, they're almost kind of put on the same sort of level, I mean, somebody does something that's actually, in my mind, a criminal act, you know what I mean? And it's just kind of like played off like, oh, it's a quirky personality trait, but it's really something that in real life you should probably go to jail for, you know what I mean? But I guess those are my quibbles right there. Also, there's something else where I don't want to give it away, but towards the end, something is portrayed as if someone gets their upcomings, I should say, and really, they didn't really get their upcomings, you know what I mean? But I don't want to give it away or anything like that. But that's pretty much it. I mean, those are my quibbles, but for the most part, I really, really did like it. It was, it's different type of material. It's a nice change of pace, and I think it was executed for the most part. I think it was executed pretty well. I don't know if it's been collected in a trade or anything like that. Probably not. But I don't know. Don't hold me to that. I would say you could probably find the individual issues, Like I said, it just came out last year, and you'd probably be able to get it, cover price or whatever. So that's it. New York 5 by Brian Wood, Ryan Kelly. If you've read it, please, share your opinions or whatever. Let me know what you think about Brian Wood's other writing, because like I said, I know it's very critically acclaimed, but I'm not going to lie, I haven't read the majority of his work. I've read this here and that there, but enough to know that I like his work. So I guess that's it. Thanks a lot, and you all have a great day.